Hello, Safety Blender Tutorials, and today we're going to go over how to make a vanilla mob. So specifically, I'll be doing the cave spider. So the first thing I'm going to do is get the texture. So I've navigated to my Minecraft directory. I'm going to go into versions. I'll open up any version that the mob is in. And what you're going to do is open the jar file with a 7-zip or WinRAR. So open the archive, go to Assets, Minecraft, Textures, Entity, and then you find the mob you want. So I'll go into the spider, cave spider. What you want to do is copy this to your working directory. So I already have a copy here, and I've renamed it to vanilla because I've modified the cave spider to be a little bit more easier to see. So here's the original, and I made this overlay that just color codes where everything at. So when you look at it, it can be difficult to tell what's what or where it relates to on the model. So generally, if you look up templates online, you'll see that it follows a pattern of having a front face, then the top face will unfold from the front. So this is where the top face meets the front face. So if you just look at the model of transition here, likewise, it'll transition to the left side or the right side of the mob, but when you're looking directly at it, it's on your left side, and then the right side, and then the back is on the other end of the right side. So again, if you were spinning the model around, you'd see this continuously. Now, I want to point out that in the cave spider, this is actually a little messed up because the texture ends here and there's just some extra pixels off of here. So then what they do is they'll have the bottom placed next to the top. However, this is a little bit orientated differently because right here is where the bottom texture would meet the top. So this part meets here, and then this part is what would meet the right side. So if I do the color coding, I have a main color, a green for the front, blue for the top, red for the left, cyan for the right, magenta for the bottom. So the way these are done is I'm using color theory. So the top is blue and the bottom is the opposite of blue, which is going to be yellow. And I've done that for both the sides too. So you'll see front is green, magenta is the opposite of green, so you get magenta on the bottom or on the back. So then what I did is I put strips of the color that borders that side of the texture. So you can see this side of the texture is bordering the right side, and I've used the cyan to show that. Now what I did is I applied this to a texture pack. So I just created a quick .mc file. I'm not sure if this is right. It says that it's an invalid or a out-of-date texture pack, but this is enough that it will actually load it. So I just rebuild the folder structure to where the cave spider texture is inside of the Minecraft folder. And then I just load this as I would, well, first I have to zip it. So you do send to, actually you want to zip it here. So you do send to compressed folder, and then you name your texture pack. And then I just load that as I would any other resource pack. And let me show you what that looks like. And basically, spoiler, you're going to be able to see it on the mob, so you can just make sure that all of the sides align correctly. So when it's on the mob, you should see, say the cyan would be, of the magenta texture, should be bordering the cyan face, or should be adjacent to it. And I believe what I did in the game for the resource pack is I don't think I had it full strength. I think I had it turned down a little bit. I don't remember. But this is how I set it up so that I can see the colors easier, and it will be much easier to skin. Otherwise, it'd be almost impossible to know the orientation of the bottom specifically. So here's Minecraft. And so let me spawn a cave spider. And you can see all of the colors. And I've already looked over it and made sure they're right. Checking the bottom is not easy, but it does work. So That is just how the colors are done on the texture, and I use that to create the texture that we'll be skinning with inside of Blender. So close this. It was supposed to close. So anyway, let's get started. Oh, and actually, I will be using this for reference because I can tell what the dimensions are. So let's get started. I'm just going to use the starting cube. I'm going to make a change though. So in my scene under units, I'm just going to set it to none. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to use 1 unit as 1 pixel, and we'll worry about scaling it later. So if we go back to our image, we'll see that the head over here is 8 by 8. So it says it down there. You can see that it says 8 by 8 as I'm sizing this rectangle selector. So we'll make an 8 by 8 cube. So do 8, 8, 8. And then we will apply the scale. I'm not going to go over all of the details of every single click. I'm going to assume that you know the basics of the interface. So this sets up the head, and I'm going to do an edge edit to set my seams for the UV unwrap. So you have the front, then you have the top, and you have the left side that's attached to it. Then you have the right side, and then the back, this continuous from the front face. However, we have a seam here to separate the bottom from the rest of the cube. So I'll do edge, mark seam, and then I'll go into my UV editing. I'll select everything, and I'll do a U unwrap. Now I'm going to load my image. Cave spider, open image. So there's my image. This image is not square, so I need to scale these along the x-axis by 1/2. I'm also going to have to rotate it, transform it a bit. Don't worry about following the pixels too much because what we're going to do is fit to the pixels. So move this, select everything, Shift S, selection to pixels, and it snaps everything. Now we don't see anything over here because we have to set up our material. So now let me go to the shading. And then let's see, I'll just delete this and I'll set up an emission shader. An emission, what it does is at a strength of 1, the value will be 1 on your screen. So there's no shading and it's very easy to see the color. So now I'll do a texture, image texture, select the cave spider, we'll connect that. We'll want to set this to closest so there's no anti-aliasing or smoothing on the texture. Also, I'm going to use the texture coordinates, and I'll do the UV. sRGB input is fine. It doesn't matter if it repeats. And so now we see the texture on the mob. And it looks like it came out okay. Even the bottom is orientated correctly, so we don't have to rotate anything. So now we'll go back to the modeling, and I'll set the texture back on so we can see it. Get out of edit mode. Now I'm going to do something to make this a little bit easier. Something doesn't quite look right with the eyes. Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be. So anyway, now what I'm going to do is instead of editing the mesh to add the different parts of the body, I'm going to make it a little bit easier by just duplicating it. Now that's a Shift D, so it duplicates the mesh bit data too. So let's go back to the texture. R, so the thorax is up here, so we can select this and see that it's 6 by 6. So we'll go back here, and it's a 6 by 6 cube. Do 6, 6, 6. And there we go. Now we'll go to edit it. We'll go to the UV editing. We'll select all the mesh, and we'll just move it over here and scale it. And then we'll do snap to pixels. Looks good. go back to modeling, and that looks good. And yeah, these colors just make it so much easier because you don't have any guesswork while you're working. So now Shift D again. Now for the abdomen, looking at the front of the abdomen, it's 10 by 8. So go back, and we can see the front is the Y and the Z. So the width was going to be 10, and then Z was going to be 8 for the height. If we go back and we look at the side, we'll be able to see that the depth or the distance in the Y direction, or the Z or the X direction, sorry, is going to be 12. Now see over here, 12 is going to end here, and then we'll have the 10 of the width for the back, and that ends short of where the texture goes. So that's a little interesting, whatever happened there. So now we'll go back, and in the X direction, we'll set this to 12. Now, actually, one thing I did do is on these, I didn't apply the scales. So I can just do that now before I forget. Just apply scales. That may mess it up later. I don't remember. So let me go into the UV editor again. I'm going to turn on shading here so I can see it. Could also press the / to isolate it. So now I'm going to select all of those, move it down here, scale it up, and I'm going to go to vertex select for this. So I'll take these vertices, move them up, take these and move those to the end. Yeah, so you notice that these vertices are not snapped. The bottom is completely free floating. And this is going to be similar for all the vanilla mobs. They follow the same kind of pattern of the front, bottom, and the same orientation. So that makes it a little bit easier when you're doing different mobs. You'll get used to it. Okay, I'll have to change these. And again, I'll do all of this snapped to pixels. And when I look at the body, the abdomen, looks like everything matches. Okay, it does. We're good. I'll unisolate. Here's the rest of the parts. And now let's make the leg. So the leg is a little bit tricky. Not tricky, but rather odd. So it's as if you're looking at the front of the spider. You'll see the front, the top, the back. The left would be the end on your right side, and then here's the back. And then, of course, you have the left. But this isn't mirrored from one leg to the other. It's literally just moved. You'll see what I mean later. So obviously this is 2 by 2, and the length is 2 by 16. So we'll do Shift D again to duplicate it. And then we'll adjust this. So X is going to be 2, Y is going to be 16, and Z is going to be 2. So this is our leg. I'll isolate it, edit it. I'll select everything, and now we have to position these. I haven't played around with this too much. It might be faster just to re-unwrap this, but whatever. Just getting a little bit sloppy. And again, snap the pixels. So look at the leg, looks good. Okay, unisolate, go back to modeling. Now I'm going to lay out the leg. Actually, I think I'm going to have the spider rotated. I'll have it pointing in the positive Y direction. Okay, we'll position it so the thorax is in the middle. I'll position the head so it lines up. Selection to grid. Make sure this is set to increment absolute grid snap. Just make the positioning a little bit easier. Okay, now the way I'm going to position the legs is I'll have one positioned here, and then I'll have another one positioned there, there, and there. So they'll overlap a bit when the legs are straight out, but based upon looking at the model, this seems to be the best way to lay it out. When I say the model, I'm talking about in-game. But at this stage, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything, and I'm going to do Control J to join. So now it's inside of one mesh, but we took the advantage of different objects in order to unwrap it easier. So let me rename these. Do spider, cave, I'll do MSH for mesh. And then for the object, I'll do spider, cave. See, I don't think it'll let me name it the same. Oh, yes, it can, because it's an object. So that's what I'll do. And then I can edit my object, and I can move everything around. So one thing I want to do for the leg is I'm going to create a joint. I won't use it for now, but I want it to be there. So what I'll do is I'll just divide the whole thing so that I have a division at every pixel, and then I can just ignore the pixels or the lines in the joint. So what I'll do is I'll make sure I'm in edge select and do alt click, it'll select the ring. So now let's go along doing shift alt click, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that leaves 3 in the middle. And I'll just do a dissolve edges. So the dissolve edges will remove them without actually deleting the vertices. It dissolves them in a way that it won't destroy the surrounding mesh. So you can see if I go to vertex select, it doesn't even leave vertices along the edges. So it just leaves a nice clean mesh with 3 loops exactly in the middle. And yeah, we'll use this for deforming the leg later. So I think this is where I'll stop for this video, and the next one will continue for putting in the rigging and the skinning. So I'll see you then. Bye.